Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson, and joining me this week from the Earth 616 podcast is...
Hi, hello, I'm David Steele. It's really nice to be back. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have our David's counterpart from Earth 616 here. Thank you for joining us.
I'm not sure what your David's up to right now. He's probably, hopefully, writing a script for All-Star Comics number 1661.
Oh, fingers crossed.
Yes, that would probably be a good way of him to be spending his time. So, the fact that I'm here might give people a bit of a clue as to what we're going to be talking about today. But I suppose, as I'm a guest, I should leave that to Peter.
Yes, we have reached a milestone in comic publishing history. It is the first superhero team-up between DC and Marvel. The first official team-up, because obviously we have talked in the past about things like the Rutland Parade.
Yep, and stuff like the Squadron Supreme, who we've touched on, I think, briefly, but I believe you and David are going to do a bit more about that in the future.
Yes, and of course the Aquaman-Namor crossover.
Of course.
Which was very exciting. A lot of fun that was. Yes.
Excellent.
However, we're on to the first official superhero team-up. And to give you a bit of background, in 1972, DC Vice President Saul Harrison saw that comic sales were in decline, and he approached Carmine Infantino, who was the publisher of DC at the time, with an idea to increase sales. Saul thought that one of the main problems was that the relatively small size of their comics meant that the other magazines overshadowed them on the newsstands, and he proposed that they pilot a tabloid-size issue that would stand out more against the competition. Now, Carmine thought about this and said, sure. And they put together an 80-page Christmas special featuring reprints of the 1950s Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer stories.
Of course.
It came out like a lot of special things at the end of October 1972 and was a big hit, particularly due to the Christmas sales. Now, with the success of Rudolph, a second tabloid was put together featuring the Golden Age Captain Marvel. And DC reprinted some of his stories because they had recently acquired the rights to the Big Red Cheese and wanted to capitalise on that. It worked. This led to a series of tabloids titled Limited Collector's Edition, and it was so popular it went bi-monthly in 1974. Now, across the road, Marvel were noticing this, and they put together their own version of these tabloids called Marvel Treasury Edition.
Of course they did.
That was in the summer of 1974. Now it gets a bit weird. At this time, DC and Marvel were working on adaptations of the MGM film version of The Wizard of Oz. Both companies agreed to co-publish the story, with the creative team, which was Roy Thomas, John Buscema and Tony DeZuniga, coming from Marvel. Shortly thereafter, Marvel, just solo at this time, published a sequel called, wait for it, The Marvelous Land of Oz. Now there's a third issue titled Ozma of Oz, which was written, drawn and subsequently shelved, as by that point Treasury sales were in decline. But you can see some of the pages from that in issue 61 of Tomorrow's Back Issue magazine, which focused on the tabloids.
Cool.
I know what you're thinking. How does this connect to Superman vs. Spider-Man? Well...
Can I say? It's because it was published in a tabloid format.
Yes! That's part of the reason. Well, Stan Lee, who was always looking for ways to expand beyond comics, was having lunch with an agent called David Obst. Obst was a big deal at the time as he represented the Watergate journalists Woodward and Bernstein.
Wow.
Now, Obst floated the idea of a DC-Marvel crossover. Smiling Stan agreed, and Obst negotiated a deal between the two companies, and history was made.
Fantastic. There was huge chunks that I didn't know. That's very interesting.
There you go. One of the main ideas behind Supes vs. Spidey was that, unlike the previous Wizard of Oz adaptation, it would be an equal collaboration between DC and Marvel staff. Jerry Conway, who was a DC staffer at the time, was chosen as writer as he was the only person who had written both characters for any length of time. And Ross Andrew, who was the current Spidey penciler, he was chosen to pencil the book. But more on that after the story, I think.
Okay, sure. How many Treasury editions or tabloids, etc. do you have?
Oh, loads. I couldn't tell you offhand, genuinely.
Got a few. I think as far as treasuries, I've got quite low-grade copies of the 2001 and one of the Fantastic Four ones. And I've got the Defenders one.
Yes.
Because like my Earth 2 podcast counterpart, I'm a big fan of the Defenders.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a fair few of the DC ones. I seem to remember getting them all quite close together. I think I might have said this before, but Justin Ebbs had a table at the 1998 sort of memorabilia fair in Hall 4 at the Exhibition Centre.
Oh, right, okay.
Which was my first experience of Doctor Who actors charging for autographs. I took a postcard of Peter Davison as the Doctor along to get signed for someone else, and he charged me £5 for the privilege.
How dare he?
I remember thinking, oh dear, this is unusual.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, I remember thinking you could tell he was uncomfortable with it, and was kind of like, apparently this is what I have to do now. And I was like, all right, it's okay, it's fine. Could you put to Victoria, lots of love, Peter Davison, open brackets, chatterbox? Anyway. But Justin Ebbs had a few, and that's where I got, I think, Superboy and Legion and the Bible and a couple of other ones. Justin Ebbs, of course, is a titan in the UK comic scene. That's all I'll really have to say about that, really.
Mm-hmm. As I said, I've got quite a few. I've got lots of the Marvel treasuries. What's really cool is DC are currently doing facsimile editions of some of the old tabloids, and what's amazing is most of the ones they've come out with are ones that I didn't have previously.
That's lucky.
I know. So I've been able to get facsimile copies of the tabloids at the proper size, which is great fun.
Because there was that Superman Flash one.
Nope, didn't have that.
Which I've got stashed and haven't bought yet.
Mm-hmm.
Or I should say my Earth 2 podcast counterpart has stashed and hasn't bought yet.
Yes.
How long can we keep this going? But also they've done a couple of new ones. Like was that Untold Tales of Batman or Untold Legend of the Batman
Legend
tabloid?
of the Batman,
That hadn't been published in that format before.
Nope, and it was magnificent. It was great. Jim Aparo and John Byrne together.
Yeah.
Sensational.
And as we record this week, issue 1 of Batman from DC Comics has gone on sale, and they published a tabloid-sized version of that.
I think it's bigger than the tabloid size. It's the giant size.
It's unwieldy, is what it is.
It's
came in a box.
Impractical is what it is.
Yes, they came in a box all their own, and Alistair and I were like, "What the heck's this?" And we opened it. It's like, "Oh God," we said, or rather, my Earth 2 podcast counterpart said. Anyway. So we should probably get a photo for the socials then of us holding some tabloids.
Yes, take 2 tabloids and call me in the morning.
So yes, Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man was published eventually on the 2nd of January 1976. So we're into 1976 finally. And I suppose Peter should tell us about the cover.
DC and Marvel present the greatest superhero team-up of all time. The Battle of the Century. 75 pence, it says in the corner, because obviously I've got the British print.
Ooh.
Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man.
$2 is the American cover price.
Is it? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, the exchange
Very
rate has changed.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gosh.
So, we're at a jaunty angle. There is a tower mast coming out the top of a skyscraper, and sticking to this tower is Spidey, and he's all poised for action. His feet are on the tower. He's got both fists raised, ready to punch someone who's flying at him. Oh my goodness. Who could possibly be flying at Spider-Man?
Is it Nighthawk?
Is it the Vulture?
Is it the Submariner?
No.
Is it the Angel? That'd be cool.
It would be cool. But it's not. It is Superman.
Gasp.
He has got his fists ready for a good old punch-up. Teeth bared. The curl in his hair is actually forming a proper S as well, which is fantastic. Cape blowing in the background. It's phenomenal.
It's very striking, and it's interesting. I think, if I'm being honest, I think Spidey comes off better. Spidey looks like Spidey. Supes looks a little bit awkward the way his left arm is sort of like raised and back and tilted, and his head looks, to be honest, the way I'm looking at it, looks too small for his body. It's such an iconic cover that it's been homaged a few times over the years. And I believe that my Earth 2 podcast counterpart has arranged a few which he will post photographs of on the socials this week, so look out for them, listeners.
What's really cool is at the back of the tabloid edition, you have how this famous cover was born, and it has got some of the rough sketches leading to the final cover. Now, unfortunately, in my copy of it, some fun chap has decided to colour in the figures of Superman and Spider-Man on it.
Gasp.
I have a very, very, very old beat-up copy of this.
Hold that up for the benefit of the YouTube viewers.
There you go.
Wow. That'll have to go on the socials.
Yes, that'll definitely be going on the socials. But yeah, it's fascinating just looking at the process here. But we'll go into a bit more of that after the story.
So yes, cover penciled by Ross Andrew and inked by the legend that is Dick Giordano. So, listeners, this story is 92 pages long. In fact, it's longer than that because there are a few sort of character profile pages scattered throughout. So, surprise, shock, horror, we are not going to do a full read of all 92 pages. apologies if that's what you're anticipating. If you want to do a full read for your own podcast, go ahead. We can't stop you.
In fact, we encourage it.
Yes, I started working on the synopsis for this. We're recording this on the 3rd of September, I think. I started writing the synopsis for this in July, and I finished it on Sunday.
And you finished 20 minutes ago.
No, it's not quite like when Steve and I did Wrath of the Spectre. Hi, Steve, if you're listening. So what we're doing this one, in the style of when we did the Big Black Hawk epic a few years ago, or when we did our Fantastic Four coverage earlier this year.
Yes.
It's part summary, part performance in the style you're accustomed. Bear with us, folks, because honestly, it's 92 pages, and there's a lot to get through. So,
yes.
We shall begin. There is an opening image with captions. It's a kind of slightly different riff on the cover image. An opening splash page, and the captioning there reads,
At last, the greatest team-up of all time, Superman and the Amazing Spider-Man. This is it, the battle of the century.
and we get the credits for the issue.
Presented by Carmine Infantino and Stan Lee. Written by Jerry Conway. Drawn by Ross Andrew. Inked by Dick Giordano. Lettered by Gaspar Saldino. Coloured by Jerry Serp. Produced by Saul Harrison with an assist from Jack Adler. Consulting editing by Roy Thomas, because he had to get in there, Julius Schwartz, Marv Wolfman, and E. Nelson Bridwell.
Thank goodness for that. Now, I'm reading from my copy of DC Crossover Classics, the Marvel DC collection, which was published in 1991. I bought my copy on Saturday, the 30th of May, 1992. Fact, fans, I just know. And notice some of the credits are actually different in this from what you read out.
Oh, really?
Because this reads edited by Carmine and Stan, coloured by Jerry Serp and Rick Taylor.
Ah.
Interesting.
Maybe it was recoloured for that edition.
Possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. Very interesting. Anyway, so, before the story properly begins, there are 3 prologues. The first one stars Superman and starts with a caption.
Prologue 1, another exciting episode in the earth-shaking adventures of Superman. Winter in Metropolis. For some of the city's inhabitants, winter is a time of migration to happier climes where the sun burns a trifle more brightly and the air is less bitter and chill. For some, yes, but not for the city's premier citizen, Superman.
And we see Supes flying into action, and Supes basically spends his prologue battling a giant robot that's causing havoc in Metropolis on its way to attack Star Labs. When it gets there, it steals a computer component. Superman manages to gain the upper hand against the robot by shoving it down to the ground. Its head section flies off. So the head of the robot is basically, it kind of looks like some sort of tabletop air fryer combination kettle with a sort of pink screen at the front, which almost works for its face. Superman flies up after it saying, "Great Krypton! The robot's head is a miniature missile. It's escaping along with Star's stolen computer module." Supes pursues, but the head section then explodes. And we learn that this is only a distraction to allow the robot's pilot, one Lex Luthor, to escape. You see Lex's head poking out of a hatchway as he says,
Ah, Superman, you do disappoint me. Even a child could have seen that flying head was a mere decoy.
Lex then escapes using a jetpack. Fantastic. He flies off with his laughter echoing. Now, the robot was lead-lined, which enabled Lex to stay hidden from Superman's X-ray vision. With Lex having gotten away, Supes flies to the Galaxy Communications building, where he assumes his Clark Kent identity. There's an amusing bit of business with a bucket of water that Steve Lombard has rigged up to prank Clark, but Clark outwits him with a burst of super breath, and instead it's Steve who gets soaked by his own trap.
Splash!
Wonderful. Galaxy boss, Morgan Edge, reminds the staff that they're heading to the World News Conference in New York tomorrow. His briefing is interrupted by Jimmy Olsen, who makes them aware of a rival channel broadcasting a news report on the rampaging robot. Edge chews out Clark for not covering the story, and Clark chides himself, and as he then pops into a broom closet to become Superman again, he thinks, "Watching that broadcast, I had an idea, and I hate myself for not thinking of it earlier. When I realized how much time I wasted taking that robot apart and searching the body for its missing circuit, I could kick myself from here to the moon. Literally. Well, what's done is done." The Supes flies off over the city, beautifully rendered at an awkward angle. He continues monologuing to himself. "The worst disaster in the city's history," the TV said. And it was right. It was so bad the robot left tracks, which are leading me straight to Metropolis Bay. And using his X-ray vision, he is able to scan and see that the tracks lead below the surface. Soups dives underwater with a and follows the robot's tracks back to its starting point, where he sees a weird, almost spider-like metallic device walking along the ocean floor. Soups thinks, some sort of undersea lab here in the bay? What on earth? But suddenly, a huge metal rod with a fist on the end extends from the front of the laboratory on legs and grabs Superman with a boom. From inside, a voice yells through a speaker,
"Hello, Superman. What an unpleasant surprise this is! I trust you pardon this rather rude method of extending an invitation, but I would like you to join me inside."
Superman drops into the vehicle through a chute when he sees Luthor. So you're the man behind all this?
You seem startled, old friend. Hadn't you guessed?
Frankly, no. But I can see now I should have, since only a madman would devastate half a city for the sake of a simple theft.
Come now, Superman. Surely you don't think as little of me as all that. I never act capriciously, especially in matters of crime. My robot had a twofold purpose: to commit a theft and to lure my greatest enemy to his destruction. And Superman, my greatest enemy is you.
We were friends once, Luthor. Long ago. For a time I hoped we could be friends again. Perhaps we will be someday, but in the meantime, we are enemies because you choose lawlessness and I choose law. You're going back to prison, Luthor, and you're going now.
I think not, old friend.
With a click, Lex flicks a switch, and Soups is suddenly being fired on by a series of high-intensity lasers. Luthor has designed them to react to Superman's movements, so they fire faster and faster, trapping Superman in a web of laser beams. Soups manages to escape, but as he does, Lex zaps him in the eyes with a wrist-mounted gadget. Soups is dazzled, and he speculates to himself that the lasers carry light on the same spectrum as a red sun.
Gasp.
While Soups is disorientated, he manages to grab Lex's chair and swings it, sending Lex flying into the controls of the machine. As Superman tries to recover, Lex takes the circuit he stole from Star Labs and sends it off through a pneumatic tube to another hiding place to retrieve it later. Soups makes a move towards him, but Lex zaps him again. Soups quickly fires a blast of his own vision, melting a hole in the wall, causing water to start rushing in from outside. Lex panics, but Superman saves him from drowning and flies him off to jail. Prologue 1 ends as Clark Kent joins his colleagues at the airport in time to catch the evening flight to New York. And now this is the first part where the narrative is interrupted by a bit of a profile page situation, which Peter will now read and perform for us now.
Now a pause for hero identification. Born on the planet Krypton, young Kal-El escaped the cataclysmic destruction of his home world in an experimental rocket designed by his father, coming to Earth, where, thanks to the rays of our yellow sun and Earth's lighter gravity, he gained the spectacular powers which have made him Superman.
And that captions two magnificent panels of Krypton exploding with the rocket ship and the baby Kal-El inside, and Superman in all his costumed glory flying high above the city of Metropolis.
The hero identification continues. Stronger than any man alive on Earth, Superman was adopted by the Kents, who taught him to use his indestructibility in an everlasting fight against crime, for truth, justice, and the Terran way.
Oh, that's interesting.
And these three panels show Superman demonstrating his powers. In the first one, he's lifting up a giant battleship. In the second one, is it bullets ricocheting off his chest? It's some sort of armament. And in the third one, he's using his X-ray vision to spy on a crook who's holding up an innocent man.
That was an excellent extrapolation from what's going on in that last panel. I would argue that's open to debate, but we're not going to argue about it. Right, so that is the end of Prologue 1. We turn to top of page 16 for Prologue 2, which begins with a caption.
Winter in Manhattan. Like Metropolis, Manhattan has had a relatively snowless winter. And, like Metropolis, Manhattan's winter has been cold and bitter. And tonight, while the Man of Steel ends his battle with a master criminal at the bottom of Metropolis Bay, in New York, another hero prepares for a battle of his own. A night in the life of your friendly neighborhood web spinner, the amazing Spider-Man.
And we see Spider-Man balanced on a flagpole, where he spots a group of shady-looking types robbing the Metropolitan Museum. They're cutting about on the roof carrying boxes. Spidey pauses only to set up his camera try and get photographs of him in action before leaping into the fray. The robbers are wearing army uniform-style outfits. Spidey takes them out very quickly, and we see one of the crates break open, revealing very interesting-looking artefacts. As Spidey punches out the last intruder, a voice yells out, "Curse you, wall crawler! Am I never to be free? Will you hound me forever? Will there never be an end?" And there's a clang sound effect as what looks like a telescopic metal pole collides with the ground behind Spidey, whose Spidey sense goes off as he yells,
Huh?
and then another telescopic pole hits with a
Clang!
and Spidey looks around and sees these are not mere telescopic metal poles. They are the tentacles of someone very dangerous, as he says,
So you're the boss. Dr. Octopus!
"The same! After our last rather unfortunate encounter, I decided to plan my next outing in finer detail, yet still you persist in thwarting me. And for that you'll be amply punished. Look to the sky, Spider-Man, and behold, the flying octopus! It marks the beginning of a new era in my pursuit of crime." And we see, indeed, the flying octopus. Let's try and describe it. There's a sort of green globe at the back over a sort of limpet sort of shape with Millennium Falcon style sort of, what's the word, cockpit glass spaces.
Yes, bubbles.
Bubbles. And like Doc Ock himself, the flying octopus has a series of extending mechanical tendrils. Spidey points at this device and says,
Yeesh! And I thought the Spider-Mobile was a fiasco. Is that monstrosity supposed to impress people, Aki? Or is it just a giant conversation piece?
"Impudent clod!" yells Doc Ock as one of his tentacles flies down towards Spidey, who obviously jumps out the way. "I'll teach you to insult me! There's another whack as one of his tendrils strikes the ground beside Spidey. Spidey manages to grab a hold of it, saying,
Aki, you won't do a thing, except take a big fall.
Spider-Man pulls on that particular tentacle, sending Doc Ock flying backwards, but Doc recovers enough to say, "Don't be absurd. If anyone is going to fall, it's you." And with a
chunk,
one of his tentacles slaps Spidey, who exclaims, "Oof," and falls off the roof of the museum. Spidey manages to stop his fall by firing a line of webbing. Thank goodness for that. He swings back up to, again, tussle with Doc Ock, but Spidey is taken out by the pilot of the flying octopus, who strikes Spidey from behind with one of the tentacles. Spider-Man out for the count, Dr. Octopus and his goons make their getaway with their booty. As they leave, the police arrive on the scene, and Spider-Man wakes up to see their guns pointing at him. But he manages to get away, despite having run out of web fluid. Spidey makes his way to the Daily Bugle, where he changes to Peter Parker. Bugle editor J. Jonah Jameson is delighted when Peter tells him he has photographs of Spider-Man battling Dr. Octopus. A delighted Jonah fawns over Peter and orders Carmody, one of the Bugle staff, to take Peter's best shot from the evening and plaster it on the front page of the Night Owl edition of the paper. However, Peter's best shot is revealed to be a blurry photograph of the shadow of Dr. Octopus on the back of Spider-Man's head. Jonah is furious to see the image on the cover and attacks Peter. Robbie Robertson pulls Jonah off Peter, and Jonah orders Peter to get out. In fact, he orders him to get out 3 times. Peter goes for a walk with Mary Jane Watson, but Spider Sense is set off by a blimp flying overhead. Switching back to Spider-Man, he makes his way to the blimp, and landing on it discovers not only is it made of tissue paper, but it is a disguise for, guess what? Dr. Octopus's flying octopus.
Gasp.
Spidey and Doc Ock tussle again as the blimp shreds and crashes into the Central Park Reservoir. Leaving Dr. Octopus to the police, Spidey heads off, and Prologue 2 ends with Peter joining Mary Jane and his Bugle colleagues to head to the World News Conference. And now Peter will read us the next page.
Yet another pause for hero identification. While still in high school, young Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider at a science exhibition. Instead of dying, he soon found himself possessing uncanny abilities, the proportionate strength of a spider, the knack of climbing walls, all of which made him a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
And of course we see the classic scene of bespectacled Peter Parker looking shocked as a spider bites him in the hand. And take a drink, listeners, because the other massive image in this page is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man swinging through Brooklyn. I'm going to say it's Brooklyn. It might not be, but I'm going to say it's Brooklyn. With a massive full moon looming behind him. And he's got that amazing webbing under his arms, which I've always liked.
Yes, seems.
Very cool. The captioning continues.
With the death of his Uncle Ben, a death Peter felt he could have prevented, Spidey turned his talents to fighting crime. He had designed a costume with one-way eye holes, a handy-dandy web shooter which carried his own web formula, and a special belt pack containing all sorts of spider goodies. Now he too battles evil as Spider-Man. And we get 3 close-ups, one of Spidey's eyes, another one of Spidey's web shooter in action, with the usual middle finger activating the button as the web fires out, the wrist cartridges. And in the final panel, you've got Peter lifting up his Spider-Man uniform to expose his belt, which we can see has got the slots for his web cartridges and, of course, his spider signal right in the centre belt buckle. Very exciting.
Awesome.
They used to have this a lot in the UK annual reprints when I was a boy. It was great fun.
What, the sort of description of how his uniform worked and all
Yeah,
that?
it's like, here's the spider signal. And it's like, he's got his costume rolled up and stuff.
It's interesting you sort of mention the spider signal, because at the end of Civil War, the Marvel movie, sort of post-credit scene is Tom sort of figuring out and realising he can display the sort of spider signal. And I don't think he's used it in any movie since.
Oh, well.
Anyway, and now, as we hit page 31, page 31 of a 92-page comic, it's time for
Prologue 3. Several miles southwest of Deming, New Mexico, there stands a strange sight, rising from the desert like a great grey mirage. Federal Maximum X Security Penitentiary No. 1, the most escape-proof prison in the world, used for the temporary detention of certain super criminals awaiting trial, such as its 2 most recent arrivals, Dr. Otto Octavius and Lex Luthor.
We see Lex being led in. Dr. Octopus is there already. 2 baddies exchange pleasantries of a sort. Lex hasn't been in his cell for long before he pulls back a layer of false skin on his arm to reveal an escape kit consisting of sonic disruptors and earplugs. The sonic pulses he generates send the prison staff to sleep. Lex then activates a power cell on his wrist which broadcasts energy to Dr. Octopus's metallic arms, allowing him to regain control of the tentacles and break the 2 villains out of their cells. With the prison staff incapacitated, Luthor and Doc Ock make their escape, and that is the end of prologue number 3. And Peter will now read another text panel combination page to us.
And leave us not forget our villainous villains, such as our Otto Octavius. Once a physicist working to unlock the ultimate secrets of the atom, Dr. Octavius became a victim of his experiments when a model atomic pile exploded, grafting Otto's work arms to his body and providing him with telepathic control over his new metallic limbs. Thus was born that dread menace, Dr. Octopus.
And we have a big close-up of Doc Ock at the side of a building, standing on 2 of his extended tentacles with another 2 up, ready to punch someone. Doc's obviously in his usual kind of green onesie that he wears, with his orange boots, his bowl cut, and his glasses, his all-important glasses. And that brings us to
Young Lex Luthor, on the other hand, was a criminal since the days of his adolescence. Like Octavius, he too was a victim of an experiment gone wrong, this time indirectly because of his childhood friend, Superboy. As a result of the disaster, Luthor lost all his hair, permanently, and the shock of this, coupled with the explosion itself and the loss of a vital experiment to create life, caused Luthor to hate his former pal. Over the years, he's invented many devices to defeat the Man of Steel, and has proven himself Superman's toughest and most elusive enemy.
And we see a close-up of Lex Luthor's power gauntlet. There's also a close-up of the kind of like cross bandolier thing that he wears in this era. And there is a lovely, lovely picture of the man himself in all of his 70s Bronze Age glory. I love this costume.
Peter loves Lex.
I do. I'll say that right now. So he's got his green leggings, his purple top with the upturned disco collar. There's his jet boots, as I said, the cross bandoliers, and he's smiling his evil, evil smile. Yay!
Proper Lex Luthor, isn't it?
Yes, I've got a pop vinyl of this version of Lex Luthor.
No, I am not surprised at that information.
Didn't make it myself. It's not one of my customs, but I was tempted to do one until they actually brought one out.
I see.
Cool.
I'd like an action figure of that version of Lex. I know that DC Direct did one of him in the armour that he gets, before too long, but I can't remember if there's been a figure of him in that style.
There was one in that kind of like Super Friends range that was out fairly recently. I don't think it was in the Superpowers line, it was in the adjacent one.
Oh, right, got you.
You know, the
Okay.
one with the original Sinestro
Oh, yes,
and stuff?
yes, got you, yeah.
I think they're slightly smaller.
I know the ones you mean. So, finally, page 36, with all 3 prologues out of the way, we can begin the story properly as a caption reads...
Superman and the Amazing Spider-Man in
A Duel of Titans, Chapter 1. We're at the bustling World News Conference. Staff from the Daily Bugle and the Daily Planet are arriving by escalator. Escalators were still considered cool in the 70s, by the way. Anyway. Immediately, Peter Parker and Jonah Jameson have a heated exchange and Peter storms off, followed by MJ, who helps calm him down. Elsewhere, Lois Lane and Clark Kent are exploring the site and take a look at a display featuring CommLab, the world's first orbiting communications laboratory. This is obviously a play on the famous Skylab, which was the United States' first space station, launched by NASA, occupied and used between May 1973 and February 1974, eventually crashing to Earth in, I believe, in 1979, which I remember being on the news.
Wow.
The story of this comic being published in 76, Skylab is still very much in the zeitgeist.
Crikey. My memory of Skylab is that it lasted a lot longer than that, but that's barely any time, really. Gosh.
Lois isn't as interested as Clark, who ponders that NASA are keeping very quiet about what sort of experiments CommLab will perform. Clark then overhears Morgan Edge discussing Clark being replaced on coverage of a national convention in Metropolis later in the year, because Clark isn't well known nationally. Lois asks Clark if he's going to let this happen, and when he doesn't seem to be too concerned, Lois storms off, frustrated by Clark's lack of backbone and ambition. Calming down, but being very true to how she's portrayed in the media in the 1970s, Lois decides to climb some scaffolding at great risk to take some photographs of CommLab, but obviously she loses her footing and falls. She is caught by none other than Peter Parker, who is also on the scaffolding platform taking photographs. On introducing themselves, Peter and Lois realise they know each other by reputation. Mary Jane arrives and spars gently with Lois, who assures Mary Jane that she's not interested in Peter. She has her sights set on, well, as he arrives, out of nowhere in the final panel of page 43, Superman! Superman flies down towards Lois, Mary Jane and Peter, and Lois exclaims, "Fantastic! This is the wildest coincidence I've ever..."
The words end abruptly, in mid-sentence.
Yes, suddenly Superman fires beams of golden energy out of his eyes at Mary Jane and Lois. Captioning resumes.
Twin beams of unearthly force lance downward from the descending costumed figure, and...
In a burst of coloured sparkles, Lois and Mary Jane fade out. They vanish. Peter yells,
Mary Jane! Lois! They're gone!
as Superman flies off.
For the first time in his life, Peter Parker has seen the Man of Steel. And to say the least, considering the circumstances, our young hero is stunned. And frankly, friends, he's not alone.
Yes, we get a close-up of a very concerned-looking Clark Kent who thinks, "Great Scott, I must be losing my mind. What just happened isn't possible." Unless, but his thoughts are interrupted as Peter Parker speaks to Clark Kent and says,
Phone booths! Where are the phone booths?
"What? Oh, over there." Clark points. Peter runs off thinking.
Feel like I'm in shock. Gotta move.
Peter runs off. You can see an arrow on the wall, a sign pointing saying, "Telephones."
Gotta change to Spidey. And a phone booth is as good a place as any to... Oh no!
He exclaims because instead of a handy phone booth, it's a series of wall-mounted receivers and slots. No use. We then see Pete running up a flight of stairs, saying,
I forgot. Ma Bell replaced most of the city's booths with stalls over a year ago. Best bet now is the roof.
He continues.
First I'll tuck my clothes in a web bag, then switch to Spidey.
And we see his clothes all bundled up and wrapped up, and Peter pulling his mask into position.
Funny, I'm still dazed. Can hardly believe this is happening. All my life I've heard of that super guy, and now when I meet him... Wait! My spider sense! Ringing like a chow bell.
We see the legendary spider sense effect going off as Peter realises,
He's here, above me. Web shooters don't fail me now.
and he fires a line with a... We turn a page and we arrive at Chapter 2,
When Heroes Clash.
And there's some captioning.
Far below, in the streets surrounding Manhattan's Columbus Circle, eyes turn skyward and pedestrians stare. And honestly, Pilgrim, can you blame them?
As Peter swings around, none other than Superman flies up to face him. Spider-Man says,
Far out. It's really you, Superman.
"Correct, web-slinger. I've heard reports about you. You better have an explanation for what you've done, or, my friend, take my word, you're going to be sorry."
What I've done? You've got that backwards, fella.
Soup swings a punch, but Spidey ducks backwards, continuing,
You're the man who's got some explaining to do, and you better start pronto before I... Huh? Where?
and Soups has flown off, and the Man of Steel is thinking to himself, something's wrong here. Knowing Spider-Man's background, I assumed he was connected with the phony Superman who caused Lois's disappearance. But listening to him, I'm not so sure. And we then cut to the roof of another building. Bit of a Dutch tilt to this panel, so I'm sure that Peter likes it. And we see Dr. Octopus pointing towards Superman and standing next to him, holding a rubber Superman face mask and dropping it into a bag of tricks, wearing a Superman uniform. It's none other than Lex Luthor. Dr. Octopus, pointing at Soup, says, Ha! Our plan's working better than expected, Luthor. Look!
Superman wasn't due to arrive for the convention's opening till this afternoon. But considering the opportunity this supplies us with, I suppose we shouldn't complain. Spider-Man appears determined to battle a flying foe octopus. Since he's being so cooperative, why don't we give him an assist?
You see that Lex has pulled out a gun-shaped gizmo. Dr. Octopus looks on and says, You mean that red sun radiation device you prepared?
Precisely.
Lex fires the gun. Shimmering burst of purpley pink light emanates from it and strikes Spider-Man. Lex then says,
Though the radiation charge is purely temporary, it should stir things up rather nicely indeed.
See Spidey balanced on the side of a wall, Soup's flying up to him saying, Spider-Man, I've been thinking. Perhaps all this is a mistake.
You bet there's been a mistake. And Buster, you made it!
And with a massive kapow, he punches Superman and sends him flying. Superman is more surprised by the fact of Spidey's punch rather than its force, and he falls but manages to recover and flies back up to Spidey, who greets him by kicking him into a building. Superman tries to reason with Spidey, but the webhead is not in the mood, expressing his concern about Mary Jane. He punches Superman again, sending him flying, and Soups retaliates, realising at the last instant that the force of his blow could kill Spider-Man. He pulls his punch, but the shockwave is still enough to send Spider-Man flying a great distance, and we see him smash through the window of a fancy art gallery and out the other side. Soups lands on the roof of the art gallery building and again tries to reason with Spidey, who takes another flying kick just as the red radiation from Lex Luthor's gadget wears off, leaving Spidey to bounce off Superman and fall to the ground. Trying to reason with the wall crawler, Superman says, Spider-Man? But Spidey says,
How'd you get so hard so suddenly? Is this a trick or what?
He tries another punch with a
thunk. Yow! My hand! You have gotten harder. Well, whatever it is, it won't work.
Continues to punch at Superman's stomach.
You're going to tell me where Mary Jane is, or I'll tear you apart.
Soups isn't feeling a thing as Spidey keeps punching.
Whack, quack, 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 quack. Wham, 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 flap, 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 flap.
And then it's a nice sort of effect that he's obviously experiencing a great deal of pain as he says,
Oh boy, I broke my hands.
As Spider-Man calms down, Superman suggests they compare notes.
One large lump of exposition later.
See Spidey and Soup standing, much more calm. Spider-Man says,
Pal, we've been duped.
Undoubtedly. The question is, do we let the dupers, whoever they are, get away with what they've done? Or do we join forces and fight them together?
For that you need an answer?
I suppose not. Let's shake on it, partner.
Let's.
And they do shake hands. They have stopped and decided to team up.
Yay!
And the final panel, see Spidey holding his hands behind his back, and he's still obviously feeling a great deal of pain as he thinks,
And let's not shake again till after I get a titanium steel hand. Youch.
Chapter 3 begins on page 60 as the caption reads,
The Call of Battle.
A fantastic image. We're looking down on some beachside property. There's a fence, and we can see what looks like rail tracks, and there's a big warehouse. A couple of actually abandoned looking warehouses beside the sea. And Superman is flying in, pulling Spider-Man along behind him. Spidey's in a line, but he's also made some skis out of webbing. Fantastic. And Soups looks down at one particular warehouse and says, Down there, Spider-Man, the old Penn Central Railroad Yard. It's not used much anymore, but judging by the energy residue I've been following since we left Columbus Circle, it's currently the headquarters of our super imposter. Two heroes land beside the warehouse, and Spidey says,
Wow, the things you can do with X-ray vision. Don't you ever stun yourself, Soups, old boy?
Actually, no.
I didn't think so. Well, are we going to stand here all day, or is one of us going inside?
And at that, Spidey leaps up onto the roof of the building, continuing,
Don't bother answering that one, Soups. You ask a stupid question?
You get a stupid answer. Good luck, Web Slinger. Spider-Man drops into the building and immediately has to deal with a series of traps, including machine guns in the floorboards, electrified walls, and wires designed to slice him like a Vegematic. He clears the traps, as outside Superman decides to make his entrance by flying through the metal gate door at the front of the warehouse. Spidey and Supes both arrive in the same room at the same time, with Supes bursting in with a wham! Spidey opens the door, not as impressive an entrance, but he sees his friend arriving and says,
Superman, you're not much in the subtle approach, are you, big fella? Hey, look who's playing house. Doc Ock and
Lex Luthor.
very perceptive.
yes, because we see at the other end of the room are our two baddies from earlier in the story. Dr. Octopus standing with his arms folded and his tentacles restrained and reined in, beside Lex, who's relaxing in a very comfortable-looking chair. Dr. Octopus addresses the two heroes saying, As you can see, Lex and I have joined forces.
Even as you have. Though our teaming is for a somewhat less altruistic reason.
Just tell me where Lois is, Luthor.
Yeah, and the kid with her, or else we'll... Temper, Spider-Man, temper. The girls haven't been harmed, I assure you. A glance at this small TV monitor will prove what I say.
And on the screen, you see Mary Jane and Lois manacled to what looks like a steel beam. It looks like Mary Jane and Lois are arguing. It looks like Mary Jane is pointing at Lois and making accusations or comments. It's quite funny. Luthor continues.
We captured them for a reason, Wallcrawler. They're bait, and by bringing you to us, they've achieved their purpose.
Dr. Octopus grins and says, Of course, the game isn't over yet.
No, as a matter of fact, it hasn't yet begun.
And as Lex laughs, both he and Dr. Octopus shimmer and fade out. Superman exclaiming, What? Vanishing! Spidey moves forward.
Grab them before...
But they've gone. Spidey twigs that they were only projected holograms sent from somewhere else. He attempts to use the computer controlling the holographic equipment to work out where the two villains actually are, but in a great way of filling a page, the computers are booby-trapped to explode, but Superman is able to repair them in an instant. So, why bother with that? I don't know. Spidey's able to trace the coordinates of the source of the hologram signal to where Supes identifies as Mount Kilimanjaro. Our heroes fly there at once, with Spidey again being drawn behind Supes on a pair of skis he's made from webbing.
And so, mere minutes later, two red and blue blurs streak across the African sky, descending at last to the plain south of Kilimanjaro and west of the Pear Mountains, where...
They encounter some Maasai warriors, and after a bit of chat and making friends, our heroes are guided to an area where one of the tribesmen had vanished a few months ago. Supes examines a boulder pointed out by their guide, Nuchaka, and finds a door carved out of the stone. Spider-Man's spider sense kicks in, and they're suddenly attacked by the now not missing tribesman, who's grown to a giant size. Spidey and Nuchaka aren't much of a challenge, and even Superman struggles against the augmented warrior, even losing a piece of his hair to the warrior's sword. Supes theorises that Luthor has enhanced the weapon with red sun radiation, and then he charges up Spider-Man's web fluid with his heat vision, giving it the consistency of steel, enough to subdue the warrior. Leaving Nuchaka with his friend, Spidey and Supes venture through the door in the stone. And we arrive at Chapter 4, which is called
The Doomsday Decision.
Superman and Spider-Man find themselves in a large area filled with scientific equipment that Spidey compares to something from a James Bond film. There's even, as Superman discovers, an empty rocket silo. The heroes realise they are too late to catch Luthor and Dr. Octopus, and Supes has a good idea where they've gone. We cut to outer space. We cut to the orbit, a low orbit around Earth, where we see Lex and Doc Ock flying along in a very James Bond, I suppose, streamlined small aircraft, which we can see has a logo on the side that reads
Injustice Gang of the World.
And this little green shiny vehicle is flying towards what kind of looks like a giant orange smash Martian hanging in space. By which I mean it's made up of two golden hemispheres with various sort of linking golden tubes all wrapped around it. What is this weird thing? Well, as they fly towards it, Lex tells us when he says,
There it is, Octopus, the satellite headquarters of the Injustice Gang. For the next few weeks, it's home sweet home.
Lex's little aircraft docks with the large satellite, and we can see them making their way through an airlock with Doc Ock saying, Who or what is the Injustice Gang, Luthor? Another of your pet projects to rule the world?
Hardly, Doctor. For a time, several months ago, a number of so-called villains banded together to fight justice. Thus the name Injustice Gang. Unfortunately, without my criminal genius to guide them, they were quickly defeated by the forces of good. Their satellite was abandoned, derelict.
So naturally, you simply appropriated it for your own use.
Naturally.
As they make their way further into the satellite, they emerge into a large open chamber where we can see Mary Jane and Lois handcuffed to that pole, which is inside a large glass globe. My goodness, Lex greets them with a smile.
Ah, ladies, I'm pleased you're still well. I hope you enjoyed your little trip. Teleportation can sometimes be somewhat unsettling, I know.
Luthor, in all the time we've been together, you still haven't explained. What are we doing here? Why are we baiting our two worst enemies where...
Control yourself, Octopus. The answer to all your questions is this.
And he produces a little small red piece of shining equipment.
I stole this programming circuit before Superman captured me yesterday, and managed to hide it while he brought me to jail. With it, we can destroy our foes once and for all, and simultaneously achieve the greatest blackmail payoff in the history of mankind. So relax, my friend. The game's just begun.
And as Lex plugs the programming circuit into the computers on a satellite, Dr. Octopus rubs his hands together in the background. There's a bit of a slow dissolve.
Interlude. New York, New York.
And we open at a high angle looking down on a building in the corner of a busy street. And from inside we hear a voice saying, "A small one, Scotty. No, and second that, make it a large one. And hold the water." And we see that the man talking is none other than J. Jonah Jameson, looking very smart in a blue suit, and he's walking into a bar. Scotty is the name of the bartender, there ahead of Jonah. Sat at the bar in a brown pinstripe suit, looking very smart, is none other than Morgan Edge, who says,
Hard times, Jameson?
"Huh? Oh, Edge. No more than usual. And you?"
I don't play games, Jameson. When I've got a problem, I let it all hang out. Right now, I've got a problem. A big one.
"Don't flatter yourself, Edge. You run a television station. I run a newspaper."
So do I, Jameson, remember? The Daily Planet.
"Yeah, but you got workers you can trust."
What are you, a comedian?
"Pardon?"
Take Clark Kent, for example.
"Is that a serious offer?" Jonah takes a drink.
You are a comedian, Jameson. Kent is my best reporter, or would be if he were around when I need him.
"Reminds me of a photographer I know. Peter Parker. Good, but unreliable." See Jonah and Morgan taking the leave from the bar. Morgan saying,
Exactly like my man Kent. Here we've got the biggest story of the year, and what happens? My top TV newscaster disappears in a cloud of dust, like the Lone Ranger with glasses.
"You just can't get good help these days, Morgan, my boy."
Jameson, let me ask you, do you always talk in cliches, or is today something special?
And Jonah and Morgan have made their way somewhere else. You can see them standing with another group of men who are in uniform by the looks of things. Obviously, it's the control sort of area for the whole ComLab launch, because we can see a couple of big screens, one showing a map of the world, and another one showing a vessel scurrying through space. And indeed, Morgan remarks,
Never mind, it seems they've just launched ComLab. Can't blame them. Going on in spite of this morning's disturbance, these things are expensive after all.
Pages 76 and 77 are a brilliantly structured two-page spread showing Lex Luthor on the satellite taking control of ComLab as it is activated, using the program element he stole from Star Labs at the start of the story.
Good. They've released the heat shield. Now I can take over.
Doc Ock looks puzzled. Take over?
Don't you see, Octopus? The programming element I stole from Star? It allows me to manipulate the signals reaching ComLab, substituting my commands for the electronic orders of Mission Control. ComLab is mine, now!
We see a technician panic, exclaiming,
What on earth? One of the communication lasers! It's gone haywire!
And we see a beam firing from the side of ComLab as Lex laughs and says,
Ha! I've sent a high-intensity laser probe into the Earth's atmosphere. We've won, Doctor! We've won!
Superman and Spider-Man arrive on the scene, with Spidey piloting a borrowed space shuttle model as he thinks,
Supes was right. Whatever Lexi and Ock are up to, it involves ComLab. Me, I still don't understand how MJ and Miss Lane fit in. Well, ours is not to reason why, etc., etc.
Observing the laser firing from ComLab, Superman thinks, Spider-Man seems to be handling that borrowed space shuttle model fairly well, but it's a safe bet he can't stop the damage that Berserk laser probe is doing on Earth. No doubt about it, this is a job for Superman. And we see the laser beam striking Earth's atmosphere. And we are then shown the effect of the laser as wildstorms begin raging across Middle America. And Superman wonders that Earth's ecology could be threatened by the damage caused by the sustained effect of the laser on the atmosphere. But then, in turn, Superman is indeed struck by the laser himself, and Spidey's shuttle is struck, affecting life support and leading to him quickly falling unconscious.
Darkness follows, clutching our hapless heroes like a smothering hand, drawing them down into unconsciousness. And when the darkness breaks apart...
Spidey and Supes are inside the satellite, Dr. Octopus and Lex gloating as our two heroes recover consciousness. Lex, standing beside a screen showing the disruption on Earth, says,
Surprised, Kryptonian? Don't be. I used ultra-frequency sonics in that laser probe, powerful enough to hurt even you.
Rubbing his head, Superman says, Luthor, what's the purpose of all this?
You mean you haven't guessed? The purpose is blackmail, old enemy.
Picture behind Lex shifts again, showing a certain art which might be very familiar to one of our regular co-hosts. Lex continues.
As you can see in this monitor screen, most of the Midwest, from New Orleans through St. Louis to Chicago, is in the midst of a hurricane. My doing, of course, thanks to an alteration of ComLab's advanced communications equipment. Unless the US government pays me $10 billion within the next hour, I'll allow this storm center to spread and build until it swamps the entire world.
Gasp! Spidey and Superman, still struggling to recover from the effects of the laser, start to get to their feet. Superman saying, Our position seems clear, eh, Spider-Man?
Very. We've got to move, and move fast.
And he leaps forward, tackling Lex. In the background, Supes flies towards Dr. Octopus, knocking him over. Lex exclaims,
No, it isn't possible. Both of you were stunned, groggy.
Lex acts quickly and switches off the gravity inside the Injustice Gang satellite, making it difficult for the heroes to fight. As it is, Superman is still groggy from the laser. Spider-Man's web shooters are especially useless in zero gravity. Dr. Octopus is still able to use his mechanical arms and slams the heroes into one another. Spidey and Supes start to recover their wits. Superman grabs Dr. Octopus's tentacles when he tries to attack him, using the momentum against him and slamming Dr. Octopus into the wall, making him come over all Velma from Scooby-Doo as he exclaims, My glasses! I can't see! As he loses his glasses. Physics hits Superman though, as he is also sent flying backwards, impeding his recovery from the laser. Luthor tangles with Spidey and manages to get Doc's now broken glasses back to him. Spidey and Luthor's tussle continues as the webhead tries to reason with Lex, citing all the people at risk. On a screen, Superman sees a huge tsunami that's heading for the east coast of the US and heads off to try and do something about it, leaving Spider-Man to deal with Dr. Octopus and Lex Luthor. As the ComLab laser fires once again, Lex gloats.
You see, Spider-Man, in moments the chain reaction will start, and what began as a simple blackmail plan will end in the glorious destruction of a planet which held my genius in contempt. That's why I brought Superman here through Miss Lane, to witness the final culmination of my black ambition.
Spidey reacts in a way that only Spidey can.
Oh boy.
He then turns to his old foe and says,
You hear that guy, Oki? He's going to destroy the Earth. Where are you going to spend your loot then, friend?
Dear Lord, he's mad, says Doc Ock, coming to realisation. He activates one of his tentacles and slams it into Lex's computer bank, saying, I can't let you do it, Luthor. The Earth is my home too. There's a crash and a burst of sparks as the tentacle interrupts what Lex was doing, prompting Lex to yell,
No! You've destroyed the programming module. I've lost control of ComLab's laser probe. You blind, interfering fool!
Lex does an amazing flying kick towards Doc Ock, knocking him over, saying,
Fortunately, the act was pointless. Though the chain reaction is broken, the Atlantic coast will still be smashed beneath a 200-mile tidal wave, as you'll be smashed, you traitor!
We see a shot of Superman flying down through the atmosphere. We cut back to the satellite, and Spider-Man watches Dr. Octopus and Lex Luthor scrapping between themselves, saying,
No fair, Lex. Ock did his duty. I only hope he did it soon enough, and that Superman can turn the wave back.
And over a shot of Superman flying down towards the massive tsunami, Spidey continues,
If not, goodbye Boston, goodbye New York, goodbye Washington. Well, I guess you get the point.
Caption at the top of page 90 reads,
Indeed we do, Wall Crawler.
You see Supes flying down towards the wave thinking, 1 mile high, 200 miles long, one slim chance to stop it, if only my head would clear.
Faster and faster flies the man of tomorrow until, with a thundering crash, he shatters the sound barrier and continues to blast from Mach 1 through Mach 2, Mach 3, creating a cresting wall of sound, which meets the onrushing wall of water, the irresistible object greeting the immovable force. For an instant the floods of Noah wash the earth once more, and then, of a sudden, there is peace.
Yep, simultaneous action as the wave of sound knocks out the wave of water. You see Spider-Man with a
Pow!
knocking out Lex Luthor back in a satellite. There is a slow dissolve.
Afterward,
Yes, we see what's clearly a line of webbing, but as Peter pointed out in the prep, we're not sure what it's attached to. It's Spidey swinging in, carrying the globe that Lois and Mary Jane were held in. Why Soup doesn't carry it, we're not sure. And then we see them all on the roof of whichever building it is. Lex and Doc Ock, webbed up back to back, sat on the ground with Mary Jane and Lois conversing in the background. And Spidey is saying to Superman,
Imagine Luther's ego. Coming to New York just to grab Lois Lane as bait for a trap to net you. Guess it was just luck he grabbed my girl too, huh?
luck or destiny.
Yeah, well, who knows?
I hope we meet again, Spider-Man. And they do a sort of bro handshake. No way of putting it, sort of like,
Thumbs clasped.
yes. Spidey replies,
You hope. Don't forget me.
and the next panel, as Mary Jane and Lois Lane look on, Spidey swings off with Doc Ock over his shoulder, and Soups flies off with Lex under his arm, Spidey saying,
After all, it isn't every day two living legends go around making history. Am I right? Or am I right?
Spidey, old friend, I don't think anyone's ever been righter. The caption reads,
The end?
then we turn the page.
not quite. There's still our ever-loving epilogue.
Let's hope, listeners, there aren't 3 epilogues. The caption reads,
20 minutes later, after delivering their respective villains to their respective jails, two heroes switch to their alter egos as...
we see Clark Kent looking down at a big fancy bit of equipment, thinking, setting up an automatic video camera to record our arrival in Columbus Circle was a stroke of genius, Clark. We see Peter Parker putting back on his fancy jumper with the yellow design in the white trousers as he thinks.
Some great pictures of my automatic snapshot are of me and Soups hitting the Coliseum just now. Good thinking, Peter, my man.
Get the drift, reader? If not, jump ahead a few moments to a scene in a nearby restaurant.
In the restaurant, already seated, are J. Jonah Jameson and Morgan Edge and Mary Jane Watson and Lois Lane. Peter walks in. Clark arrives, handing what looks like a spool of something to Morgan, with Morgan saying,
Kent, you're unbelievable. An exclusive story. Positive?
to which Pete then says,
If you're talking about Superman and Spider-Man in Manhattan, I've got some pics of that myself.
Lois and Mary Jane smile, with Lois saying, Peter Parker, long time no see. Jameson looks at Pete and says, Did you say photos? At this point, Clark Kent and Peter Parker shake hands, with Clark saying, Seems we covered the same event, Parker, though I don't recall seeing you there.
I stick to the shadows, Kent. Apparently, just like you. Well, Jonah, do I get a raise?
Says Pete, holding up the spool of undeveloped film. Jonah saying, We'll talk about that tomorrow, Peter, my boy. In the meantime, have a dinner on me.
Jonah, you're a real saint.
True. So true. Cut to Morgan and Clark, with Morgan saying,
Maybe you'll anchor our convention coverage after all, Kent. Go ahead. Take Lane to dinner on me.
Thanks, Mr. Edge, says Clark with a smile. And we conclude with a nice shot. Peter, MJ, Lois and Clark all walking off arm in arm as a caption reads,
And so, as our heroes fade into the sunset, we bid them a fond farewell, secure in the knowledge that peace reigns on earth and that justice is triumphant. For tonight, anyway. And folks, this is definitely the end.
So, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yes, rip-roaring action.
I have to be honest, right? Prep took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I had to boil my head afterwards. Easier in some ways compared to the Fantastic Four one that we did at the start of the year, and we did 6 issues in one go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, which we did on the Earth 616.
Yeah, which you did in the Earth 616 podcast. My counterpart joined you.
Yes. But it's such fun. As I always sort of say, sometimes all you want is a can of Lil and a Snickers bar. You don't want a 6-course lunch with, like, it would make a smashing film.
Yes, it'd be highly entertaining.
Now, you did some more research, etc., about some of the shall we say, the processes involved in bringing it all together, didn't you?
As I hinted at before, there's more to the artwork in the story than meets the eye. As I said, Ross Andrew was chosen to pencil the book, and Ross wanted his frequent collaborator Mike Esposito to ink it. However, it was decided that Dick Giordano from DC would be the inker to balance things out. Colours by Jerry Serp, and Gaspar Saldino was on letters. Now, interestingly, the credits say colours by Jerry Serp. However, there's an article in back issue number 11 from Tomorrow's published in 2005 by Daniel Best who dives further into this. and he proposes that Marvel's Glynis Oliver did the colours on the book, but I can't see anything else
All right.
stating that.
That's odd. Wouldn't they just credit her? That's bizarre.
However, looking at the credits for the second Spider-Man Superman crossover, Glynis Ween, she was then, she did the colours for that, so it's entirely possible that she might have had a hand in this, or Daniel's got the two confused. Anyway, in an interview with Joe Rubinstein, Joe revealed that Terry Austin inked all the backgrounds of the book and also touched up some of the inks. Joe also claimed that, and I quote, Neil Adams couldn't stand not being included in such a history-making project, so with or without Dick Giordano's permission, he redrew all of the major Superman figures and inked the one on the cover. That's a bold statement there from Joe.
I'd heard that somewhere. Maybe I read the same article. It seemed to be in my head that Adams was involved, and of course he drew the Superman Muhammad Ali tabloid,
which we'll be covering later on.
Which we'll be doing.
Anyway, Daniel contacted a few people involved with the production of the book to try and confirm this claim. But the general consensus from the staffers, including Mark Evanier, was that there was no way Neil could have redrawn the Superman figures between the pencil and ink stages. However, Daniel investigated further. He contacted both Dick Giordano and Neil Adams for their versions of the story. Dick got back to him first. Dick said, no one asked Neil to redraw the Superman figures, but the pages were sent to me at Continuity, which is Neil Adams' art studios.
Of course.
And were mostly left to my desk or thereabouts when I went home at night or on weekends. And Neil took it upon himself to redraw the Superman figures without telling me he was going to do it. I didn't complain, but I didn't mention it to anyone at the time and never really spoke of it until now. Mostly out of respect for Ross and his work.
I think that's hilarious.
Ross was one of the very best storytellers in the business, as well as great at composition, layouts and design. He often drew on one side of the paper, then on a light box turned it over and redrew it on the other side, correcting the distortion, then reversed the page again and traced the corrected version from the back side of the artboard to the copy side. This took a great deal of time and slowed him down greatly toward the end of his career, but I loved the distortions. It gave his work a charm and distinction that I always believed was appealing. I learned how to ink his work to minimise the distortion without losing the charm. That became moot, as Neil changed or corrected all the Superman figures to his own frame of reference. I tried in the inking not to lose too much of the Ross Andru look, and to his credit, Neil tried as well to retain the look, mostly correcting anatomy errors in his redrawing. You really couldn't lose his storytelling or compositions, so in my mind, the result was still Ross Andru at his best. Dick also said that Neil may have gone back over his ink on the cover, as Neil preferred his more controlled look of pen inking instead of Dick's organic brush inks. Then Neil got in touch with Daniel to give his recollection of the events. Neil said, when I looked at the first pages, I realised Ross had rushed some of the work, and Dick himself had a lot of pressure deadline-wise. I thought, how many times would Soup go up against Spidey? How many shots would this project get? 1! I knew the strengths and weaknesses of the two artists. I asked Dick if I could tighten up the cover for him in preparation for inking. He said, long as you don't basically change it. I said, never! I've just sort of ink it with a pencil. They both seemed to have the same voice.
I've noticed.
It worked out nicely. And then we agreed to ask Ross if I could, because I had more experience with Superman, tighten up the Superman figures in the book. Ross was delighted. Dick and I were delighted. I took great effort to keep the Ross Andru look and quality while I added a bit of anatomy here and there, chiselled the face a bit and basically inked with a pencil, after which Dick inked with ink. I don't think you could find a collaboration the likes of this one anywhere. I was the mustard on a ham and Swiss.
Interesting.
The method I used? I ran a kneaded eraser over each Superman figure which lightened the pencil. Then I penciled new lines over the old and filled in areas that were unfinished. I located the roughed-in S symbol and solided up the anatomy. I knew Ross Andru's style, so I kept it Ross as best I could, and Dick blended it with his inks. But if you look real close... Ross came up and visited me at the studio after that, and we became quite friendly. So that was Neil Adams' contribution to the book, but the collaboration doesn't end there.
Good God!
I know! In conversation with John Romita, Daniel discovered that Romita also pitched in the artwork at the insistence of Stan Lee, touching up the occasional Peter Parker or Mary Jane Watson face. So, the full artistic credits in the book should read, penciled by Ross Andru with assists by Neil Adams and John Romita, and inked by Dick Giordano with assists by Terry Austin and Joseph Rubinstein. My goodness.
Interesting. I mean, there are some panels when you look at it that Soups does look a bit more Neil Adams. One thing I remember reading about ages ago was how in certain panels, you can see it mainly in the splashes.
Mm-hmm.
Soups and Spidey, they're given a sort of white edging to make their figures sort of stick out more, like
Yeah.
Page 55 is a good example of it in Spider-Man.
Good one in 15 in Spider-Man as well.
Page 50 is a good one example of it in Soups. It gives it almost a 3D sort of effect.
Yes.
Could you not just got John Romita to draw all the Spidey stuff, and then on the same page he's just got Neil to draw Soups? I don't know, because Ross Andrews' Spider-Man stuff is quite similar to what Romita had been doing. It's kind of similar to the way that Rich Buckler was drawing Fantastic Four in a Jack Kirby sort of style. As I've learned from listening to Ross and Kirby talking about the Fantastic Four on Stop Let's Team Up, it was a massive collaboration across a lot of folk, obviously, to get it all together. I think it's worthy of the tabloid format. I think the artwork and the scope and the scale of it all, published in this format, is really what sells it.
Yes.
I'm reading from the trade paperback, so it's obviously not as quite as impressive. But when you look at it, we are recording in the same room today. Pete's got his copy of the tabloid there, and it looks spectacular. The full page splashes or the double page spreads, they look amazing.
Yep, absolutely wonderful.
I think in this case, the story is a little bit of a nothing burger, but it's about the spectacle. It's about the novelty.
Yeah.
It's about these two. I mean, think about it. Soups has been around for nearly 40 years at this point.
Yeah.
But Spidey's only been around for not even 15.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But he had achieved that level of, iconography, if that's something. They're both still a little bit away from their, their live action interpretations. And I've seen many, many Nicholas Hammond and Christopher Reeve mashups over the years. There's a lot to consider with this one. I mean, things I like most are, we just skimmed over it, but the Lois Lane and Mary Jane interactions are really good.
Yeah, that was great. I really liked how there was an instant respect with Lois and Peter as well, acknowledging each other professionally.
Yeah.
Going, oh wait, you're here, and oh my God, that's great.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. That's a lovely bit of character work.
Yeah. And it's, cool having Jonah and Morgan Edge going for a drink together. I mean, one thing obviously we should talk about on Twitter, someone using the handle JL Avenger. Hello if you're listening. I don't know your real name, sadly, unless your real name is JLA Avenger. He was sort of saying, I can't wait to hear you guys try to figure out which Earth this one takes place on. So let's have that conversation.
Well, this is its own Earth.
Obviously.
Without a doubt, this is the Earth where Marvel and DC collide. This is the amalgam Earth, as it were.
I wonder if this is the same Earth that the Adventures comic Spectre was on.
It may well be, considering the Daily Bugle existed on that Earth.
But then, of course, we're back into the Clark Kent.
Actually, yes.
Yeah, so,
oh well.
Anyway, it's clearly sort of set on its own continuity, its own continuum.
Yeah.
You could get tied up in knots sort of trying to work out anything else, but it has to be. And
Yeah.
I quite like this sort of approach when they just get on with it.
Yes, very much so. Uh-huh.
There's no need for a dimensional rip and being sent back and forth or someone
They're
being
just
sent over.
there. That's it. Hey, I'm in your city. Oh, hi.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's not a point when someone's, they've heard of each other, but they haven't met before. And
Yeah.
that's quite meta in a way.
But yeah, no, it's terrific fun, and you can see why this spun out a whole series of crossovers because it was so popular and so successful.
And we'll be doing them all, obviously, listeners, don't you worry.
Mm-hmm.
As a story, it's not the densest, is it?
Yeah, it's Austin Powers basically with
Yeah,
with
I see what you
Lex.
mean.
I mean, the stealing of the satellite and the death laser, and Lex doing his blackmail for $10 billion.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very sub-Bond / Austin Powers.
Yeah, I mean, and for all the incident, for all that actually takes place, it could be told in a lot less. I mean, it was, when I was writing a summary, there was points when it was very easy to cover like 4 or 5 pages in one, practically a sentence, because they just fight for a few pages.
Yeah.
So they could have made it maybe 15, 16 pages shorter and saved a lot of pen and ink and time, but that's just me being practical.
Like the very start, you've got Lex's giant robot walking through Metropolis, basically smashing its way through buildings in a direct line. It kind of reminded me of the recent Superman movie.
Sure.
With the dimensional rift doing exactly the same thing, going in a straight line through Metropolis.
Sure.
And its line of destruction.
Yeah, that's fair. And I have to say, I kind of had the sense of David, what's his name, in mind when I was trying to do Superman there.
Excellent. Good.
It's an interesting thing as well, because it kind of fits rather seamlessly into both continuities of the time, which is a good thing. You can imagine if someone that wasn't reading Superman or wasn't reading Spider-Man, but they picked up this other one, it's not particularly jarring. Everyone behaves the way that they should behave.
Yeah.
Jonah gets a couple of scenes to shout at Peter.
Steve Lombard setting up practical jokes.
Yeah. Morgan Edge being a bit thingy on Clark, and Lois being annoyed at Clark not sticking up for himself. I mean, if they were to do a crossover movie, they couldn't go much further wrong than copying this. I can imagine Nick Holt and Alfred Molina together, It'd be a lot of fun. I mean, and fun, I think, is the key word for this one.
Yes, without a doubt.
There's not a huge amount of substance to discuss. I mean, there's one thing that we kind of glossed over in the summary is when they fly to Kilimanjaro, and there's a sort of spin on the the natives, or they obviously expect them to be unintelligent savages, but one of them, went to university or whatever, so they're quite articulate. That's quite funny.
It's almost like Wakandan culture, yeah.
Yeah. The question that kind of burned into my head just as we were finishing the recording, Supes has got X-ray vision. Do you think he knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man? Do you think in that final page that Clark is thinking, I know who you are, young man?
I think he's a decent enough person to not pry on someone's private life. So I think he accepted the fact that he was Spider-Man and left it at that. Now, if Spider-Man had been up to no good, he might have peeked underneath. But because, I suppose they were fighting, but then again,
It's just the way that Clark says,
Dunno.
seems we cover the same event, Parker, though I don't recall seeing you there.
I think that was just a suspicion as opposed to...
No, I think there's a hint there that Supes might have,
With all the super senses, who knows? Who knows?
I liked the where the phone booths exchange.
Yeah,
that was
that
quite
was
amusing.
hilarious.
Very meta.
I love Peter's jumper.
Yes.
That was phenomenal. It's kind of like the dark blue black with the yellow band, and it almost looked like Space Invaders going across it. Almost.
I'm sure I've seen him.
Or Tetris symbols.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen him dressed similarly elsewhere. It does.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
another thing that feels authentic, and that's. I mean, this is the thing. In some ways, it's like a good multiple Doctor Who team up story.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are obviously better than others. Like the second Doctor and the three Doctors isn't really anything like what Patrick Troughton had done before, but he's a little bit more like him in the five Doctors. But then you get to something like Day of the Doctor, and it's kind of like when you see Matt Smith and David Tennant together, the novelty of seeing these two really well-loved characters bouncing off each other kind of makes up for anything else. And it's not there's narrative shortcomings in this, but it is super straightforward. It probably could be summarised, on the back of a stamp, really. I know that one thing that you really liked was the Injustice Gang satellite turning up.
The Injustice Gang is phenomenal. And it's even funnier now that on the big screen we've had a Justice Gang.
So we have. I've not even made that connection. God. Listeners, as we record, we're 2 episodes into the new series of Peacemaker, just FYI.
It's terrific. No pun intended. But yeah.
No, I hadn't thought about that. The Justice Gang, Injustice Gang.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, yeah.
One thing we need to talk about, truth, justice and the Terran Way.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
That's a really interesting update. I think it's the only time I've heard that particular version used.
Yeah, as you read that out, I was kind of like, what? Mm-hmm. What's going on there?
I had a wee look at the history of the motto. So Truth, Justice and the American Way was introduced in the Adventures of Superman radio show in 1942.
Right.
But after World War II, they dropped the American Way part from it. In the Fleischer cartoons, the motto was Truth and Justice.
Sure.
In the Kirk Allen serials, it became Truth, Tolerance and Justice.
Ooh, okay.
In the Super Friends cartoon, it was Truth, Justice and Peace for All Mankind.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. And then the Richard Donner Superman movie brought back Truth, Justice and the American Way, and that kind of cemented it as everything going forward. But of course, recently in the comics, it's changed to Truth, Justice and a Better Tomorrow.
I like that too.
Yeah, me too. That really works, yeah.
All very positive.
But I've never heard the Terran Way before.
No, it jars, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It flags him too much as being like...
An alien.
Yeah, exactly. As if he's a distinct alien making a detached sort of comment on what he's doing. And that does feel kind of odd.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What were your favourite bits then?
I loved the bit where Superman pulls his punch just as he's about to hit Spidey, realising, I could kill him with this. So he stops short, but the shockwave hits him. This is something that when I write my DC comic, I'm going to use that for the Flash's powers, because the Flash never needs to punch anyone, because basically he could pull his punch and the shockwave would hit people. That's fine. You would never have to do that. Superman's the same. Anyone with super speeds, you don't actually have to hit someone for the shockwave to take them out.
It's kind of like the Hulk clapping his hands, isn't it?
Yeah, same idea, which again is very of this period. But yeah, the shockwave thing and then the reaction to it is great. Spidey's dialogue in this was fantastic as well. It was great fun doing it.
Yeah, I just really liked how everyone felt they were doing what they were supposed to do. Everyone felt really authentic. I mean, kudos to Jerry Conway because he nails it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's obvious from the stuff that has been done in the show already between even my counterpart that Jerry Conway knows his stuff.
Absolutely, because we're in the Conway era of DC now.
Yeah, and obviously, he's responsible for some really important stuff in Spider-Man as well. So he was clearly the best guy for the job. And as probably what I was thinking when I was seeing how it felt like it all fitted in seamlessly to the standards set up for everyone. Mm-hmm. My favourite bits were really just the first sort of fight and how it gradually calmed down and they eventually became pals. Mm-hmm. There's some slightly amusing dialogue, which we did read.
Yes.
The idea of, and it wasn't really do it on enough, I felt, was the idea that Supes was able to charge, inverted commas, Peter's webbing with his heat vision, and Pete was able to be charged up with red sun energy. That was an interesting idea.
Yeah.
When you want to see them, you know in advance that Spider-Man is not as strong as Superman, but something that's done to make him temporarily strong, so we can see them having a decent fight where he's not just breaking his hand straight away.
Yeah.
That was good. As I keep saying, you could read this with a critical eye and slot it for how minimal the plot is and how little actually happens in 92 pages.
True. But
it looks great, and as much of a chore as it was to prepare, it is not a difficult read, and it's fun. And I can imagine at the time it must have been absolutely thrilling, as I'm sure it will be when we get a live-action DC versus Marvel movie or something.
Wow. I mean, part of the reason why it went so quickly is because of the sheer number of splash pages and a few double-page spreads that we had.
Yeah.
And that was ridiculous but glorious. It was like reading an Image comic in the 70s.
Sure.
I mean, an early Image comic, yes.
I know exactly what you mean, obviously. But taking advantage of the format, because that's the sort of thing, like, do you remember there was an issue of Thor that was all splash pages when he was fighting the big serpent? And that was amazing. So it's
same with Death of Superman. You know, built up to that.
Yeah, number 79, because number 75 was all splash pages. It just makes it seem a little bit more widescreen and a bit more cinematic. And this was a lot of fun to read through. And I imagine at the time it must have been great. It's just a shame we don't have a letters page that we can can go to.
I loved the zero gravity fight scene in the satellite.
Yes.
Spidey's webbing absolutely useless.
Hilarious.
Ock fighting like a boss because he can use his...
his tentacles to steady himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then foiled by broken glasses.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That again, that's what I was saying about it feeling sort of cinematic, you know, it'd make a smashing film. I mean, that's some great thinking on Jerry Conway's part to sort of think, do web shooters actually work in zero gravity when the normal rules of momentum and stuff are broken? Yeah, that bit was really funny.
And then Spidey's psychology on Doc Ock as well, saying, you know, it's your world as well, he's going to destroy. What?
Yeah, it reminds me of all those times when the Third Doctor says to the Master, look, you know, Axos is just going to rip you to bits as well, or Azal Adema is just going to rip you to bits as well, by the way, or, you know, or whatever. Or the Sea Devils have just and so on. Don't write in. The Zero G bit was amazing. That's again why you just sort of think this would be a smashing film. It'd be great to sort of see that. You can imagine them rolling in the aisles.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun. It's a thumbs up all round.
Yes, with the Austin Powers soundtrack, I think, in that scene. Anyway.
Well, see, that's another interesting aspect of it. Like, Spidey flags up how it looks like in a James Bond film, and elements of this do seem a bit Moonraker, or a bit, you know...
Diamonds Are Forever.
And even one of the Pink Panther movies when there's a big laser sort of causing trouble and stuff. Again, I suppose because if it feels like a James Bond film, again, it does feel cinematic and widescreen.
Yeah.
And again, that emphasises how good this format was.
Yeah.
There are a few other tabloid things that we're going to do, listeners, in the future, obviously. Superman Muhammad Ali, Superman Shazam, Superman Wonder Woman. All of those to look forward to.
Coming up soon on the Earth 2 podcast.
Coming up eventually.
True.
Hopefully not too soon, because my brain is still melting. Anyway.
Listeners, is your brain melting at our coverage of this incredible, groundbreaking, tabloid-sized epic? If so, you can write to us at the earth2podcast@gmail.com and tell us all about it. Make sure you follow us on social media, because we're putting up lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. On Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth 2 Podcast, and on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is the number 2 for all of our socials.
It certainly is, unless it's the Earth 616 podcast. But yeah, listeners, I mean, when did you read this story? Did you buy it at the time? Or did you buy it in the early 90s in the crossover collections trade paperback? Which I'm very glad that 19-year-old me had the foresight to buy this. You know, do write in and let us know, because it'd be cool to know. As I always say at this point, or as my counterpart always says at this point, if you're enjoying the show, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcast and giving us a positive review, or spreading the word, or sharing any of our posts on the socials, as some people are happy to do for us. We really do appreciate it, and all that. And, as always, if you're feeling generous, you could consider going to our coffee page and buying Peter the Price for beverage as he tidies up the editing on this epic recording of this epic story.
Thank you. That would be fantastic.
Yes, it would. Right, I'm going to make my way back to Earth 616 now.
I'm going to fire up the Transmaster device for you shortly. There we go. Thank you very much for your contribution.
It's a pleasure. I'll go and find out what my counterpart has been doing in Earth 616. Knowing him, he was probably just chatting with the Defenders or taking selfies with Nighthawk. That's the sort of thing he would do if he went to Earth 616.
Most probably.
Right, thanks for having me, Peter. I'll see you soon.
On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
And I've been David. We'll see you soon on
the Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter Cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
With the creative team, which was Roy Thomas, John Buscema, and Tony
He pops up on the Weird Warriors all the time.
Yeah. With Roy Thomas, John Buscema, and Tony Desuniga.
Spidey makes his way to the Daily. I nearly said it, I'd written Planet and scored out and wrote Bugle. Spider-Man's web shooters. I think 80 pages is the optimum before I start failing.
You destroyed the programming module! I've lost control of comrades. You've lost control of Conrad's laser probe.